when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. Banning books, it's wrong.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of the Morning Mayhem. This is the State of the Union full recap video. And by being a full recap, it is a full recap. I did go through the hour and 18 minutes or so, I think it was, of footage. Went through it, snipped out everything, got rid of the, stupid applause breaks and the interruptions, some of the interruptions, some. And then just the talking points that just were word salad and didn't really benefit one way or the other, and cut it all down to about 30 minutes roughly. So hopefully this won't be a super long episode, but I do want to be thorough with it. I know I'm late on this episode. I said I was going to do it and have it out Monday morning. So now it should be Wednesday morning when you're watching this, or shortly thereafter, I would assume. But I wanted to make sure that I went through it and covered everything thoroughly. Have some details, have some feedback ready for you. I didn't want to rush into it. I know it came out the night before the regular Friday episode went live, but I guess I could have watched it potentially, but it wouldn't have been as thorough. So I hope this is something that you're interested in. This will not be broken up into individual segments. We're just going to go video clip by video clip. I'll just have some standard feedback on some of it, and then I'll actually have some facts and some numbers and stats and stuff like that I can point to, video evidence of other things that have occurred to counter things that President Biden has said. And then there's some things that President Biden's done that I got to give him some props for, I think. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. If you see my video jump around, again, I don't like these jump cuts of me, moving around 1 second here and then the next second there. I like to go all the way through, but I am still getting over being sick. I think I'm good to go, but now my little girl is actually sick tonight. So if you see me jump cut or something like that, I'm clocking in for daddy duty and helping baby girl out. So please excuse that, but I'm going to do the best I can to get through this. And if I'm a little direct or short or whatever, I am going to try to make this a shorter video because I want to get to the heart of it, get to the point of it, and run through it. And I will probably be looking at my notes over here. It's not a script, but it is notes that I've taken. So everything I'm saying is genuine and from the heart. But I did take some notes as I was finding out some things, and I think that's probably all of it. Don't forget, Friday's show will be on at its normal time. It'll probably be a shorter episode just because of having this one on top of it. Again, this won't be broken up into the segments, but still, it's just a lot to undertake when you do have a full-time job doing some other stuff, and then, you got a youngin' that's sick. So we'll get into it, starting with the first clip. And like I said, we'll kind of go clip commentary all the way through it. It may get a little old to you. It may be something you thoroughly enjoy. And like I said, one way or the other, let me know. We'll get into the first one now.
Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas.
So the first thing I noticed is he opened up just so dark and depressingly. I mean, how sad is it to open the State of the Union like that? Not the fact that he was late or he got lost on the way to the stage. I'm not going to cover all that. Somebody else has, plenty of other people have. You can go look that up. But he got there late, asked about making sure he's going in the right direction, even though I guess you can get turned around walking to the front of a room, I guess. But I won't get into any of that, like I said. But the first thing, not since Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home like it is today. That's interesting. Let's look at a couple of things real quick. So CNN right here says, right-wing media says Antifa militants have seized part of Seattle. I feel like what he's doing is he's trying to say that we're divided because of conservatives. But right here, this was a blast from the past. This is not recent, okay? But this is a blast from the past from June 2011. This was when Antifa seized an entire city, or a portion of a city, I guess it was, right? Then you got another one here. Now, this was back when it was speculations. Right-wing media says that they've, seized part of Seattle. Well, they did. It wasn't right-wing media. They did. We're going to see that in here in a second. Seattle protesters take over city blocks to create police-free autonomous zone. And this is coming from The Guardian. The first one was CNN. Next one. Armed activists seized 3 blocks of a North Portland residential neighborhood. Here's what it was like inside the encampment. Looks lovely, doesn't it? Yeah, we are torn apart, but you guys have let it become like this, right? It's been a few years, but yeah, I totally see where he can reach the conclusion that we're under attack at home. Antifa, BLM, they've done a fantastic job of bringing that to the forefront. Freedom and democracy are under attack at home and overseas. He threw out the overseas part, which we're going to hear about plenty of overseas stuff here in a little bit. But I'm trying to remember, if I can, how many wars we're in right now to where we're at risk overseas. That's right, we're in 0. We're not in any wars at all. Actively being the key phrase there. Like, we're not actively at war, but we've got troops here and there, I guess, but we are very passively at war in so many ways. And we'll get into some of that because, of course, this wouldn't be a Joe Biden State of the Union address if it was less about the state of our union and less about the United States and more about, making sure foreign aid and dollars are spent and all this and that. The only way we're under attack overseas is if we found a way to wedge ourselves into someone else's conflict, honestly. And that does appear to be the case. Let's check out a next clip.
Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership.
All right, so he says Ukraine can defeat Russia. Maybe they can, but why haven't they already? Right? How long is this going to be drawn out? This has been going on since he's been in office, pretty much, right? They just need our monies and weapons. That's all they're asking for is our money and our weapons. That's all. That's it. That's all they need. That's why the overwhelming amount of monies in the border bill, which we'll talk about later, and we've talked about before, to be fair, goes to Ukraine and protecting their border instead of ours. When did it become our job to protect the rest of the world? He talks about that. And those that won't sign on to this are wanting to walk away from our role in the world leadership. Look at where we're at, right? We're the ones lacking leaders. All we have at the top are leeches sucking Americans dry of everything we have. All they want to do is spend more, and delegate more dollars somewhere else, except for back to the people that are making the money to begin with, that are funding the government, that are funding these programs. At the end of the day, it's you and I that get screwed out of our own money as it's going somewhere else to fund another war, to bring in illegal aliens. And yes, I said illegal aliens. Get over it. I know some of you got triggered with that, but let's move on to the next clip.
Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
So this may come as a shocker to you, but this will not be the first quote that is used out of context to either improperly quote President Trump or to overall mislead the audience, which is, everybody listening to the State of the Union. And a lot of people are not that informed, so they don't actually know the truth. Let's look at this one. So the do whatever the hell you want. That's what Trump said to Russia for Ukraine, right? Well, not exactly. Let's take a look at this. This is even from CNN Politics. Trump said he would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell they want to any NATO country that doesn't pay enough. That part is true. I'll give them credit on that one. The headline is true for the most part, right? This is when he first took office. Let's see if we can find a little bit here. Former President Donald Trump on Saturday said he would encourage Russia to do whatever hell they want to a NATO member country that doesn't meet spending guidelines on defense in a stunning omission, he would not abide by the collective defense clause at the heart of the alliance if reelected. NATO was busted until I came along. This is the actual quote. This is what he was saying about when he first came along, right? In 2016 and all. NATO was busted until I came along. Trump said at a rally in Conway, South Carolina, I said, everybody's got to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer. Trump said one of the presidents of a big country, he doesn't say who, at one point asked him whether the U.S. would still defend the country if they were invaded by Russia, even if they don't pay. No, I would not protect you, Trump recalled telling the president. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. So that was, of course, taken out of context to act like it was Russia against Ukraine. And I say it definitely wasn't Ukraine because Ukraine is not a NATO country. He goes on to mention NATO more and more here in this next clip, I think it is. But Ukraine's not a NATO country, so this is irrelevant. But this is used because it is a quote taken out of its original context, and they can use it and play it around however they want to. Because again, most people are ill-informed and don't do their investigation, right? So this was when he first took office. It was talking about other NATO members. At the time, he was saying if someone's a NATO member and they aren't paid up, would we send them our money and or troops to protect them? And he said, no, that's called tough love. It is, right? That's called holding others accountable, which is rare in politics. But Trump did this. He said, if you don't pay the minimum that's required for all of us to be paying, why am I going to sacrifice my taxpayers' dollars and potential lives of soldiers from my country, my countrymen, put their lives on the line for your country, and you can't even pay into this agreement? You're not holding up your end of the deal. And you know what? I don't blame Trump. Because of what Trump did, more of the countries started paying their fair share. We'll come back to that term later, but more started paying their fair share, and you saw a great turnaround with all that. Let's see what else I got here. You want us there to help you, then you better be paying your fair share. And just to be completely clear again, Ukraine isn't even a NATO member, so it's completely irrelevant to the conversation. I said that a second ago, but hey, you know what? Gotta love notes, right? Next clip.
America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and they know how to fight.
All right, so just like I was saying a second ago, he keeps mentioning NATO. But Ukraine is not a NATO country. Right? How is NATO stronger? He says NATO's stronger. How is it stronger? Because more countries joined to take advantage of our money and our military? I mean, if they're paying their fair share and they're doing their part and they're going to send their folks over here if we have a disaster, cool, awesome. I can't even imagine that being the case. It's always going to be ring, ring. Hey, America, we need you. That's what it's always going to be. I feel like, and I pray to God we never need anybody else, because one, that's a bad spot for us to be in if we ever do. And two, I don't know who's going to be able to help us out if we're struggling. Sheesh. So yeah, I'm not sure how much stronger we are with Sweden on board. But if they're all paying their fair share again, more power to them. Apparently not all have reached their 2% commission yet that we were talking about, or 2% commitment there. So right here, and this is from forces.net. This is the 2% GDP. That is what everyone agreed to. And if you look right here, Poland was not performing back in 2014. I don't know why they have it like that. I would have done it right as Trump went into office. Whatever. Poland wasn't paying theirs, and now Poland is paying more than anybody as far as percentages go, right? Which is fair. Which again, if you look at statistics, numbers don't equate equality. It's the percentages that you start seeing the equality across the board. I'm a numbers guy. I really appreciate percentages because they really show you the full impact of something more than numbers overall. So you see here, Poland blowing it up, United States blowing it up. And of course, the United States was spending more already than everybody, percentage wise, again, of GDP. And we're still doing it. We're other than Poland now, who's got on the train. I always say the Trump train, probably. But you got all these other countries that have started stepping up. This light blue line is before Trump, and the dark blue is after Trump. That's what I'll refer to it as. How about that? But you see that even after Trump, there are several right here. They're there. So who is this? France. Now, France is interesting because there's the city of Paris, right, is in France, and they have the Paris Climate Accord, which everybody criticized Trump for breaking out of and says, I'm not going to do this, but yet we still maintained a lot of those same stipulations for our climate commitment, but we weren't paying all that money into the Paris Climate Accord. And Trump got a lot of crap for it. But look here, France isn't even paying in the 2% minimum, right? How sad. So you see all these other countries, they're not paying in their 2%. They're not paying in their 2%. Italy down here, Canada. But they're going to want us to spend our money or send our soldiers in to help them out. And Trump's just saying that's not fair. And if you were screwing us over, basically, and taking advantage of us, yeah, he would cheer anybody on. Yeah, go after them. Go get them. Full might, full force. Who cares? You know? They're not a NATO member if they're not paying their dues. That's the way he was looking at it. And got to be honest with you, I ain't mad at him.
I say this to Congress. We have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away.
Okay, so a message to Putin that we will not walk away. Won't walk away from what? Are we actively involved in the Ukraine war? Because that seems like that's what he's applying. Right? We can pretend that we're not. We know that we are. And Putin knows it, to be fair, right? But we can play this game and we can have all the normies to think that we're not. And we're just staying on the outside offering them support. Again, what is our vested interest in Ukraine? Why do we only stand for some countries and not others? Could it have anything to do with the fact that we're covering tracks for several crooked politicians who had family members or kids on certain boards in Ukraine to potentially launder money? I say potentially, possibly. Can't say that for a fact because I don't want to get sued, even though it could very well be accurate. Next clip.
Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th. When insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you are here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
So this is not the first time they've tried to do something like this, right? But they try to connect January 6th and the Civil War as though these are two of the exact same kind of conflicts, right? This wasn't brother against brothers, states fighting against each other. It was mostly peaceful protests. And again, I use that term kind of jokingly towards the other riots throughout the year that were called mostly peaceful, that were blowing up buildings and lighting everything on fire and destroying everything, and multiple people died and everything like this. This was, in fact, a mostly peaceful protest. But depending on which side of the aisle you're on, one will say it was the worst thing since the Civil War, as we just heard, and then other people will say it's mostly peaceful. Looking at all the evidence and looking at everything, there was a lot of chaos there. But for the most part, it was mostly peaceful. So I will continue to call it that. It was a mostly peaceful protest against the extremely questionable election, which it was. And that's it. You can't deny. I mean, if you're honest, there was a lot of questionable things that happened. People were standing up for their democracy, asking you to look into it, and then demanding, maybe over the top for sure, and I'll condemn anybody that was breaking into a building they didn't belong to. Now, if the door was open and they were let in, that's a whole different thing, right? Okay. These people have to reach or just lie to find something against conservatives, it seems. He then says some of the people there want to bury the truth on January 6th. Yeah, we've all seen the footage that Tucker Carlson released. A lot of it was being buried. And because it was leaked or given to Tucker Carlson or whatever, and he started airing it, I mean, certain people were released from these extremely long jail sentences that were undeserved. Not only that, but just the other day, it came out that Liz Cheney and others on the January 6th committee allegedly suppressed testimony showing Trump admin pushed for National Guard presence. Here's the article right here from Fox. January 6th committee allegedly suppressed testimony showing Trump admin pushed for National Guard presence report. And there's more and more of this rolling out because this literally just broke. What was it? Just the other day. Yeah. I mean, this is hot off the presses, as they used to say. But yeah, they're saying now that he called for National Guard presence and other people denied it, and he actually did significantly more to disrupt this than they're giving him credit for, and they impeached an innocent man. That's the kind of stuff that's coming out right now. So stay glued to that. I'm sure we'll cover more of that as it rolls out because it's extremely fascinating, and I can only imagine. And who can forget the AOC video that came out? Would she put it on Instagram or whatnot, saying that somebody's banging on the door and there were protesters in the building and they were like, where is she? Where is she? And it turns out it was just security looking for her. And she wasn't even in the same building. And this was at a completely different time. So they're lying, they're reaching, they're doing everything they can to make it sound worse than it was, worse than it is. So yeah, there are people there that want to bury the truth, but they're not Republican. It's not the Republican folks that are trying to bury the truth. I can promise you that. He calls both sides to come together to defend democracy and freedom and restore trust in our institutions. Right after he just said we were more split than the Civil War and that there are certain people in the audience that you want to cover and hide things. I mean, he is like going after conservatives and Republicans and MAGAs and I don't know, any right wing folks or, any label you can say that's not an extreme left, a liberal, borderline socialist, right? So he's just gone after this huge attack. And he says, but you know what? Let's come together. I want everybody to come together like chocolate chip and ice cream and an ice cream cone. He wants everybody to come together. He's so full of it. And this is just one of those talking points. They'll shoot you with this hand and then they'll medicate you with this hand. Okay. So maybe don't lead with how horrible half the people in the room are before trying to sweet talk them into coming together and working with you. Those people were protesting a very questionable election. He said, you can't love your country only when you win. And these people do love their country. That's why they were doing what they were doing, right? They saw something questionable and they wanted to question it. And they're not the first ones to do that. In fact, the Democrats and the mainstream media, some still have not accepted the results of the 2016 election, still call Trump an illegitimate president. I know Hillary Clinton certainly did, and her media outlets that she works with did. In fact, here's a little montage video of some other folks that were trying to steal the election or overthrow democracy. You know, whatever it is they're saying about the January 6th, folks. Check this one out.
I have an objection because 10 of the 29 electoral votes cast by Florida were cast by electors not lawfully certified.
I object to the votes from the state of Wisconsin, which should not be legally certified.
debate.
Mr. President, I object to the certificate from the state of Georgia on the grounds that the electoral votes were not.
There's no debate.
And I object to the certificate from the state of North Carolina.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object.
I object to the certificate from the state of Alabama. The electors were not lawfully certified.
Is it signed by a senator?
Not as of yet, Mr. President.
In that case, the objection cannot be entertained. The objection cannot be entertained. Debate is not in order.
Even with the
There is
malfunction,
no
87
debate in
voting
order.
machines
Is it
that
signed by a
African
senator?
American
There is
Right
no
fact
debate.
and
There is no
confirmed hacking
debate
by
in
the
the
Russian
joint
government.
session. There is
In
no
the early
debate. There is
voting
no
from
debate.
16
There
to
is no
1,
debate.
and the mass-
Please come to order. The
My
objection
signature on it
cannot be
seeking a senator,
received.
but the Russian
Section 18, Title 3 of the United States Code prohibits debate in the joint session.
I do not wish to debate. I wish to ask, is there one United States senator who will join me in this letter
There
of
is no
rejection?
debate. There is no debate.
That's one.
The gentlewoman will suspend.
Yeah, it sure seems like a group of people trying to overturn a duly elected president. No, I don't know. What do you think? That's what it looks like to me. Funny we didn't hear a lot of uprising about this in 2016. Next clip.
As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you without regard to party to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place.
I love that. We get a great shot of all the female Democrats. I say female. I don't know if that's their right pronouns or not, but all the Democrat women wearing all white, right? Kind of reminds you of the other group that the Democrats started back in 1865 that wears white robes and you know, at least they left their hoods at home this time. Moving on. But he just called for both parties to come together, and then he bashed them. Then he called them to come together, and he bashed them. That's what he does. And then he has the audacity to mention free and fair elections and restoring trust in our institutions. This dude's a joke. Next.
Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that.
Yeah, he had two fumbles in there that I don't think anyone's been able to decipher what it was he was trying to say. But aside from that, he directly threatened the Supreme Court. He directly laid out a threat at the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, which is the top of the judicial branch, supposedly completely separate from and impartial to party alliances, as well as pressure from the executive and legislative branches. Independent. I don't know if anyone has ever seen a sitting president directly lay out a threat to the Supreme Court like that. That was extremely scary. In fact, right here, and I should have had this pulled up. I'm sorry. You have to see Liz Cheney again. Biden threatened Supreme Court justices for upholding the Constitution. This comes from the Federalist. So, yeah. Biden's public threat is not the first time Democrats have tried to browbeat the highest court in the land. President Joe Biden openly threatened the Supreme Court justices in attendance in his 2024 State of the Union address for upholding the Constitution with their 2022 Dobbs v. Jackson decision. With all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral. I love how they threw in his slip up there. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Biden said during the abortion for all portion of his address. So, yeah, I won't go into the full article. Again, as a reminder, all the articles I'm referencing, any stats or numbers that I reference, I will always have the links in the description below in the show notes. Go check it out. Make sure I'm not just, cherry picking, just like he's doing with information. But go check it out and read it for yourself. Comment in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Getting a lot of great comment interaction. Some of it's, calling me out on stuff that may or may not be worthy of being called out for. But hey, people do it anyway because this is the internet, and the internet is the bathroom wall of society. Next clip.
If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
So first he calls for the American people to send him back to Congress. To Congress. And this isn't even his first time doing this.
And I have a simple proposition here. I'm here to ask you for your help. Where I come from, you don't get far unless you ask. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. If not, vote for the other guy. Give me a look, though, okay? That's all I've really got to say.
Biden going Biden. So then he goes and he says he'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land, which it was upheld law, but despite what he and others continue to say, it is not and was never a constitutional right. And the Supreme Court did their job recognizing that it wasn't and overturned a case involving the Roe ruling, which then overturned Roe, which is their job. Get mad all you want. Next clip.
4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses. Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives of loved ones, millions left behind. A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed in the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news, but in 1,000 cities and towns, the American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told.
Yeah, look, while COVID-19 is not an off-the-table discussion, it's a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, right? Everybody would have treated it differently depending on who's in office, more than likely. It was a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic that hit the world and an easy target for criticism of anyone, including Trump. I didn't love how he reacted to it, but allegedly all of us, including Trump, were listening to the experts, or Fauci calls himself the science. Biden's made several claims that he's done things to combat COVID when they're really things that Trump did. Like, let's see, there were no vaccines available under Trump, although Biden had his vaccine before he took office, which would mean it was under Trump. And of course, most of us know that the vaccines were already out there, which you can feel how you want about the vaccines, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Trump fast-tracked the research and development of the mRNA vaccines, which, again, can be a good thing or a bad thing for him, depending on how you view it. He said Trump didn't care. All this is to show that Trump did care, of course, right? So he said Trump didn't care when he literally offered aid to Democrat mayors and governors that opposed him and his help, likely killing hundreds of innocent people. Again, here's a great article from Navy Times about the Navy hospital ship sent to New York City for outbreak no longer needed, says Cuomo. He didn't want to send anybody there. He didn't want to accept his help. Who knows how many people died because they didn't, reach out to Trump. And to be fair, a lot of the hospitals were over exaggerating how many people were in their emergency rooms and taking up beds and stuff. That came out later too. So a lot of funny stuff happening there too. Anyways, don't know if you heard it, but someone yelled out "liar" when Biden was speaking just a second ago, and that's pretty accurate. I mean, he's lying about all this stuff. And didn't more people die from COVID under Biden than Trump? Fact check. Have there been more U.S. COVID deaths under Biden than Trump? The claim, more COVID deaths under President Biden than President Trump. Blah, 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 blah. PolitiFact rating. True. Data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention shows there were over 60,000 more deaths in 2021 compared to 2020. So you can flip-flop back and forth and say, oh, well, that's because Trump didn't do enough in the beginning. But then you say, well, Biden didn't do enough at the end. And you can go back and forth. But if we're going to play games, let's play games. If you want to criticize Trump because he didn't do what you would have done, I don't know what you would have done differently. More people died under your watch than his. We can play that game. I like to call a spade and try to be as fair as I can. But when you want to play games, we can play games, right? He acts like he's some savior, but he and his fellow Democrats has botched this worse, way worse than Trump ever did. Look at the states where they were putting, or the cities, I guess, where they were putting the sick COVID-19 patients with the elderly and put them in the elderly homes. You know how many people that killed? And these were the Democrat cities, but those death counts go under Trump. And the little death count clock that's over in the corner, or used to be for CNN, these other networks when Trump was president, seemed to go away when Biden became president. Interesting, isn't it? Next clip.
The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccine that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does.
So really, he's praising the mRNA shots that Trump got fast-tracked and put it into place, and now saying they're curing cancer, right? So one, is that even true? Two, if so, does Trump get credit for curing cancer? Because I know when Biden said, when we come into office, we're going to cure cancer. And he's still making that claim now. But if the mRNAs that Trump pushed through are curing cancer, doesn't he kind of deserve the credit for it? Let's just see if that's even accurate right here. So from Newsweek, we got fact-checked, are COVID vaccines being used to beat cancer? President Joe Biden's State of the Union speech on Thursday attempted to set out achievements in office, from the economy to foreign policy, amid bowing echoes from Republican detractors, particularly over immigration. After Biden's speech, a CNN poll found 62% of people who watched it said the policies proposed by the president would move the country in the right direction. The poll of 529 people was conducted by researchers. Wow, what an amazing poll. 529 people that probably watched CNN. Anyways, one statement, however, that invited disbelief outside of Congress was one claim that vaccines used to treat COVID were now being used in the fight against cancer. And that's how he looked all night, as you've seen. He's just an angry madman, right? Let's see. During his State of the Union address, March 7th, Joe Biden said the pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. The president's comments were met by some with incredulity. I feel like Biden right now. Right-wing commentator in wokeness, they keep getting mentioned all the time. I need to go check them out. Posted on X, formerly Twitter, on March 7th, viewed 1.5 million times, with an upload of the State of the Union speech writing, Biden announces that COVID vaccine is being used to cure cancer. Entrepreneur and conservative conspiracist Mario Nawfal also wrote in a post viewed 100. Who cares? Whether it was disbelief or very literal interpretation of Biden's comments that the patented COVID vaccines were being used for other treatments, the remark picked up attention. For obvious reasons, right? However, research since the pandemic has found that the technology used in the COVID vaccines may be useful in the treatment of other life-threatening illnesses and conditions. The article goes on, but that's the point, right? It's not that the vaccines themselves, it's that mRNA technology that was used is what they're talking about. If we're leaning into mRNA vaccines, haven't more vaccinated people died by taking those? Because again, it's not like a true vaccine like we're used to. It's that mRNA. Let's go to this one. From AMA, why COVID-19 deaths among vaccinated show that boosters matter. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. And I have a hard strong argument against all that. But since COVID-19 vaccines became widely available in the spring of 2021, there's been a wide gap in deaths between the unvaccinated and vaccinated. Toward the end of 2022, though, data showed that most deaths from COVID-19 were among those who are vaccinated. But that doesn't mean COVID-19 vaccines and boosters are ineffective. It's quite the opposite. See, I don't know how I feel about that. See, on one hand, if more of the population is vaccinated and you still have equivalent deaths or death rates to what you had before, then obviously more people that are vaccinated are dying because more people in general are vaccinated. But if the vaccinations aren't helping and people are still dying, then that's also evident there as well. It goes on to talk about some of the reasons why the vaccines don't work and this and that. But that's the point, right? I still don't think we're allowed to talk about the other issues from the mRNA vaccinations that may or may not be killing people my age or younger, high school, college-aged men especially. But yeah, maybe don't lean into that too heavy to both Biden and Trump, who went on his Truth Social and wanted to claim a little credit for that. Don't know if that's what we want to lean into. Next video.
My inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope.
So he says he inherited an economy that was on the brink of. Look, here's what I know is the economy was doing great until COVID happened. Again, we can keep going back to COVID, this once in a lifetime global pandemic that happened that anybody would have been stressed out over, would have screwed up, something would have fallen short. No one would have done this perfectly. There was no model to go after that said, this is how you do it. The best case scenario was what we did. Even though I didn't like the lockdowns and all this and that, I liked the way it was done in the sense that, hey, this is what they're suggesting. Businesses can do what they want to do. Schools can do what they want to do. We are recommending this though. And that and then the companies and everything still had their freedoms until they were forced to shut down. But we were never forced to get the jab until somebody else came along, if you remember what I'm talking about. All right. So let's look at a couple of things here. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years was one of his boasts, right? And this is one of the fact-checking sites on the State of the Union. But the first one I'll go to right here, and I'm going to lean on this because I did some research and I kind of landed on this. It says 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record. Mr. Biden is correct that from January 2021 to January 2024, the United States added nearly 14.8 million jobs, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data. That is growth of about 10% in 3 years. However, it is worth noting that Mr. Biden came to office as jobs were beginning to return after huge losses during the coronavirus pandemic. Total jobs are now about 3.5% higher than the pre-pandemic numbers in February 2020. About half of the 22 million jobs lost in 2020 had returned by the start of the Biden administration. That's another thing, and we've gone over that before too, is that they are inflating their numbers by encompassing the jobs that are returning to new jobs, because it sounds better to say we create these new jobs. The numbers are wrong. The math ain't mathing. Okay. They're not all new jobs. A lot of these are returning jobs, and I'll give the man credit where credit's due, and I'm fixing to do that in just a second, but this isn't true. This isn't true. And I agree here. It needs more context because I don't know what numbers he's comparing. I tried to look at some graphs and some numbers, and I could not find what it was he was referencing. So I don't want to completely dismiss this. That's why I left this in here to talk about. But more research needs to be done on that, I'd say, before I can buy into it. Unemployment rate, 50-year low. Right here, Biden cherry picks unemployment record. This was a pretty good one, and I won't go through everything. Let's see what I want to go through. Yeah, we'll just look at the chart. I think the chart pretty much says it all. So as we see here, when the pandemic hit, I mean, unemployment skyrocketed. Companies were closing. They couldn't sustain being closed for so long. You know, they had a lot of stuff going on. So here's Trump right here in the red and Biden in the blue. I love how they did the chart. So if we look at it, the lowest we had from 2009 on up till the pandemic was Trump. And the lowest was 3.5%, I think, in a couple of months there. January, February, September, the year before. So 3.5%. And I think Joe Biden in a couple of months got it down to, nope, in 1 month, he got it down to 3.4%. Every other month, 3.6, 3.7, there's a 3.5. But in 1 month, he got it to 3.4%. So yes, technically, it is lower. Technically. So again, props where props are there, but he's not really breaking any monstrous records over here. Whereas you look at Trump, I mean, it was a continual downward slope on unemployment, and Biden's has kind of been stagnant. Really, I mean, you see some tapering off here and there, some lifts up in here, but really, it's a little bit more of the same. So, props where props are due. It is lower than what we've had on record. Okay, that's about all I'm going to give you on that one. But on this one, I will say, this claim that 16 million Americans starting new businesses is true. It's absolutely true. So there's been new business applications reach record 16 million under Biden-Harris administration. This is from SBA, Small Business Administration. Let's see. When did I start my business, my filmmaking? I did it while Trump was in office. I got my business license while Trump was in office, I think. So I'm not part of this. So count me out of this one. But 16 million people have gotten a new business application. So I don't know if that's, that could be people starting up YouTube channels. That could be people starting up their side gig on the weekend or in nights or something to earn a little extra money because the economy is so bad. They got to do anything and everything they can to make some money. Or maybe it's people out there chasing their dreams. It doesn't really matter what it is. People are going out there and they're starting their own businesses, and small businesses are absolutely 100% the heartbeat of our economy. During the pandemic and since then, the Build Back Better and whatever they want to call it, the Great Reset, as it's also called, in my humble yet accurate opinion, there was the biggest shift of finances ever, from smaller businesses, from individuals to large corporations. Especially when we saw during the pandemic, mom and pop stores had to close, but the Walmarts and the Amazons and the liquor stores, they could stay open. It was a weird time. It was a weird time. I know it was. But we saw the biggest transfer of wealth ever during that time. And a lot of that is continuing. So to see more people going out there, getting their business license, starting their business license, props to them. I don't know how much Biden can take credit for other people starting new businesses, but I've always been a big advocate for whoever is president or whoever is in charge of their local government or state or whatever, that we make it an easier process to get business licenses and get people starting their business. Because again, it is so instrumental to the makeup of this country that there are people out there starting businesses, hiring people, growing, and serving their communities. So whatever it is, we need to get out there and we need to make this happen more and more. So if this is from Biden, if this is because of Biden or his administration or whatever, props. I'm not above that, okay? Or beneath that. Next clip.
Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world, and tending lower.
All right, so one of the next things he calls out is the fact that wages are going up and inflation is going down. We can look right here at this Axios chart. Workers who received raises above inflation, averaging out around 57% here from 2016 to present day, as close to present day, I guess, as November 2023. And then workers who received raises of 5% or more over the rate of inflation. You see there's 41%. That's good. But when he's looking at the numbers, it is offset, right? So, like, for example, with the inflation rate being 9%, 6%, something around that, my wages have not increased by 6% or 9% on an annual basis to compensate for the rise of inflation. I can personally attest to that. My wages have not gone up. as much as inflation have. They have not kept up, and they haven't superseded. So while my wages are going up, they're not going up enough. I'm still further behind than I was several years ago, and I've got several raises because that's how much inflation has gone up. But when you look at it and you've got this many people, right, especially like that 41% or multimillionaires or the Jeff Bezos and all these people that all this money going into people, hey, they're making more money than they ever have. Yeah. But for every, millionaire making more money, you've got a handful of us that are making less money. But that's numbers. Again, kind of my thing. Doesn't seem to be this administration's thing. Moving on. It said inflation went from 9% to 3%, and it's the lowest in the world. So we'll start with this one right here. Again, I like to start looking back first at Trump's administration, right? So he's elected in 2016, and inflation went up under Trump. It went up in 2017, 2018, down in 2019, and it was down to this 1.26 is what it was at when he took office. He got it down to 125, and it was on a trajectory with everything that he'd put into place. Inflation was on a trajectory to continue to drop lower and lower and lower. Wonderful thing. Of course, it was this nasty thing that happened in 2020 that took inflation up, and more up, right? Up to 8% is what this says. I don't know about 9%, but up to 8% right here. And then he was, 2020, he was elected in. Biden took it all the way up, and allegedly it's coming down. And they said 3%. And I think some numbers I saw were pretty close to that. Again, a little exaggeration there. And he's comparing it to the height of the pandemic ish. This was still 2022. This was right at the end of it. So he's comparing that. He didn't come into office with that. He came into office with a 1.25%. So again, he can fudge the numbers, but he's absolutely fudging the numbers. This is not correct at all for him to say that he lowered it from when he came in the office. And of course, he doesn't word it exactly like that because that would be too much of the truth or too much of a lie to call him out on. This other one, this is a site called Data Pandas, and this is countries with the lowest inflation rate because he said we were the lowest in the world, right? The 10 countries with the lowest inflation rates are this one, 1.5, this one, 1.9, China, 2%, this one, Panama, Marshall Islands. We're not even in the top 10. So I'd say he was wrong. Next clip.
And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs right here in America, where they belong.
So Biden goes on to brag about building American jobs and buying American, and Dems give him a standing ovation, which perplexes me because I feel like there was a certain person that was like, make America great again, America first, buy America. I can't remember who that was. Oh yeah, it was this guy. And they gave him crap for it, right? Here's two articles right here, both from conveniently CNN. Trump pushes Buy American, Hire American policy in Wisconsin. And again, this was from 2017, so this is old, right? President Donald Trump signed an executive order Tuesday directing federal agencies to implement the Buy American, Hire American rhetoric of his campaign. The Buy and Hire American order I'm about to sign will protect workers and students like you, Trump told a crowd of technical students and manufacturing employees at the headquarters of Snap-on Tools, a Wisconsin-based manufacturer. It's America first. You better believe it. It's time, right? The order, which Trump signed after delivering his remarks, looks to bolster protections for certain American-made goods and calls for a review of the H-1B visa program for skilled workers with the goal of reforming the program, senior administration officials said. Trump said the order would aggressively promote and use American-made goods and ensure that American labor is hired to do the job. I don't see anything wrong with that right there, right? But then what do they go on to say here in this other article? In invoking America first, Trump stirs memories of pre-WW2 isolationist movement. Donald Trump on Wednesday delivered a foreign policy speech designed to lay out new direction and a draw contrast and draw a contrast with the previous two administrations. But for some, he instead evoked comparisons to a wing of American nationalists in the period immediately before World War II. Trump's much-hyped address centered around putting America first on the world stage, and a phrase he repeated throughout the speech. So when he does it, when he wants to buy American, hire American, lift up American products and workers and our economy, when Biden wants to do that, boy, we're going to give him a standing ovation. We're going to write all these great articles about it. It's going to be awesome. But when Trump does it, he's a nationalist, and nationalism is bad. Hypocrite more. A little more. Next clip.
Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers.
Well, let's see. Is consumer confidence soaring? That's not exactly the word I would use to describe it. Is it up? Sure, a little bit, but not soaring. I wouldn't say soaring. And in fact, looking at the Conference Board site right here, the Consumer Confidence Index right here, we can look at 2017 when Trump took office. It was the lowest of his administration. And if we come over here to 2024, I guess this is starting 2024, he's just higher now. The consumer confidence is just higher now, a little bit higher now than it was when Trump first took office. And that was Trump's lowest, because every year after that, as you see here, it just went up and 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 up until COVID. And then Biden got it up. I say Biden, whoever's controlling them, they got it up and then dropped it again. And now they're trying to play catch up. This is more of that plateauing that I was talking about, like with the inflation or the job growth, or whatever it was. There just doesn't seem to be a lot of growth or dropping. He's kind of towing the line and plateauing all across the board. But he says consumer confidence is soaring. And now he's specifically saying Trump and others in the past didn't buy American, but he will. We just covered this and know it's nothing but a lie. He's just lying. That's what they got to do. Next clip.
And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree.
And see, when you just go out and you lie like that so blatantly and in everyone's face, it makes me want to cuss. It's just so bad. Look, we know that Trump did a lot. Okay? Look here. Trump had long warned companies quit relying on China and that we needed to be producing over here. This is a CNBC article from 2019. Trump says, and it's funny enough that a lot of the articles that I was finding, and I went with this one, but there were other articles that came out around August of 2019. It's almost like something else happened after that or around that time frame. Keep that in mind. We're not going to revisit that or go into a deep dive, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Just notice that. August of 2019, Trump says he's ordering American companies to immediately start looking for an alternative to China. It's almost like they came back and did something to us after that. I don't know. But yeah, he was ordering companies to get away from China. Some listened, some didn't. That's why we had issues getting those N95 masks. They come from China, right? And then the vaccines, a lot of our pharmaceuticals come from China. The semiconductor chips that we were having issues with, that I think we are still having issues with for a lot of our automobiles, come from China. Right? He was telling us back then, we got to get away from them. We got to which is only smart if they're one of our biggest enemies and biggest competitors in the world, and they don't have whatever it is, I can't think of the word now, but like the proprietary rights, they don't honor that. If you have the rights to create the iPhone and no one else can steal that, they can, because they don't have that, like trademark, rights or something, whatever. But yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a terrible, terrible country. Now, I don't mean the people. I mean the communist, terrible government that's there, right? So yeah, we need to get away from those guys. And Trump was right. I'm going to probably say that a lot today. Trump was right. Next clip.
It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
So the state of the union is strong and getting stronger, but you just spent all this time telling us that we were more divided than any time since the Civil War. He said freedom and democracy were under attack both domestically and overseas. Doesn't sound like we're super strong right now to me. Okay, if that's the presentation is going to. Not to mention the huge division on one of the hottest topics that he hasn't gotten into yet, which he will, but that's immigration. We are a very, very divided country right now on so many of these hot topics, but the State of the Union is strong and getting stronger, he says. And then they're chanting 4 more years. I don't think he has 4 more in him, if I'm being honest. And I think if most people are, they would be. And aside from that, be concerned when you see Democrats dressed in all white, chanting in unison with one another. Brings back memories from the history books. I keep going back to that, don't I? I'm terrible. Sorry. Next clip.
Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it. With a law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it.
We're saying he lowered the drug cost. He did. It wasn't Trump. It was him, right? He lowered the drug cost. Republicans weren't on board with that. He's capping the cost of insulin. I thought Trump did some of that, right? Let's take a look. Oh, from 2020, Trump unveils plan to cap insulin costs for seniors. Takes jabs at Biden. Get it? Jabs? Like the jabs? Maybe not. I don't know. It's a play on words, a double entendre, as they say. Seniors with diabetes will be able to sign up for Medicare plans that cap their co-payments for insulin at $35 a month beginning next year. How much did Joe Biden say he was capping insulin at? I feel like it was $35. This is just a perfect example of, hey, copy my work, but don't make it look like you copied it, right?
For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade.
Saving the taxpayers money. He said saving the taxpayers money. We spent around, and I'm going to look at my notes just so I get it right. Excuse me. We spend around $150.7 billion on illegal immigrants each year. It would cost $21 billion to build the wall. Significantly less, I would say. Low estimates show a 60% decrease in apprehensions wherever there's a wall or barrier. At that rate, we could eliminate $90 billion a year in cost to the taxpayers. for a one-time investment of $21 billion. That's a $70 billion return the first year, then $90 billion every year after that. That's just me doing some quick numbers there. It may be more, it may be less, but they don't care about saving the taxpayers money, because if they did, they would have built the wall and eliminated the expenses, especially the increased expenses that we're getting now because of the increased illegal flow of migrants coming over our border now. They don't care about your tax dollars. Next clip.
I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get in Air Force One with me and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, even Moscow probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place.
That was cute. He fumbled after a few words there. He got off script, instantly started fumbling over his words. He gets about 3 words in. Someone keep him focused. Keep him focused. Put a little picture of a little kid on the teleprompter or something. You know what he likes. Yeah. Next clip.
Well, my predecessor and many in this chamber want to take this prescription drug away by repealing Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen.
And here he goes again, attacking half the room and thus half the voter base, right? But he wants us to come together. The worst part of it, though, is the creepy whisper that he's not going to let it happen. What is he going to do? We already saw him directly threaten the Supreme Court. We've all seen what he's been doing to his political opponents and opposition. I have never seen political prisoners in this country until Biden took office and his administration started going after everybody.
And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and the very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack with this one, right? First, either he doesn't know what the word deficit means or he absolutely knows what it means, right? Deficit is the overspending of your budget. It's not your overall debt. It's the overspending of your budget. The fact that he cut the budget just means that he, one, spent more than we were budgeted for and had the funds to cover, right? He spent more than that. He just didn't spend as much more than we did the previous year. So we may have had a budget of 20 trillion, and last year we had the same budget. We spent 27 trillion. This year we spent 26 trillion. Well, the budget's 20. We're still going over. The taxpayers are still on the hook to pay that back. He doesn't care because he cut the deficit, and that sounds great. And he keeps saying how he's going to cut it more and more. Where are we at? That's very easy to do the year after a global pandemic hit, of course, and the previous administration overspent in an attempt to correct course and help Americans survive long enough to get through the pandemic. I don't even understand why we keep having a deficit anyways. If this were a business, people would be losing their jobs. The company would go under. That's why a businessman, Donald Trump, did better than most politicians do, because he understands that. Like, you have to be profitable. That's why he went after NATO. That's why he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. Like, you have to be profitable. You can't continue to go into a deficit over and over and over again, even though he did, to be fair, right? But he understood that. And I think more business people are more savvy to that than politicians, because politicians, they think that you can just print more and more money. The government as a whole just thinks we can keep printing money. The Democrats significantly more than Republicans, but they've never been in a hurry to drastically reduce anything either. So Republicans, shame on you. Again, I am definitely more right-leaning Republican conservative than left-leaning liberal or whatever. But I do switch hits sometimes, and I do see some things over here that I don't see over here. But I definitely want to make sure I call out whoever I think is in the wrong. If Trump gets elected this year and he gets back in office next year, when I'm doing this, I'm sure I'll be going after Trump on some stuff, even though I actually like Trump and I think he would be great in office again. And I can't wait to see it. I'm definitely going to be voting for him. I got to call it like I see it, though, right? It wouldn't be right to you. I wouldn't be true to myself if I covered for one and I didn't cover for the other. Enough about this. We got to get back on this. And now we're fixing to get into, the pay your fair share talk. Let's check it out.
The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers.
Again, he is correct that more debt and deficit was created under Trump in his final year in office as a means to combat COVID, but not before that. Some deficit, absolutely, but nothing as drastic as what we saw, obviously, during the pandemic. And I think no matter who the president is at that time, they would have reacted fairly similar, and we would have seen fairly similar results. Let's just be honest about that. Whether you hate Trump, like Trump, or whatever, what Trump did probably would have been mimicked by anybody in office as far as all that goes, right? And the tax cut Trump got pushed through actually benefited the middle and lower class significantly more than the top 1%, despite what they tell you. Here's an article from The Hill. IRS data proves Trump tax cuts benefited middle working class Americans most. President Biden and congressional Democrats' Build Back Better, BBB, act is now in the hands of the Senate. The legislative body's 50-50 partisan split will undoubtedly make the bill's passage difficult. In order for BBB to become law, Democrat Senate leadership will need to convince moderates, such as yada, 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 efforts while imposing substantial tax reform measures. Congressional Democrats have argued that one of the best ways to pay for the legislation is to raise taxes on wealthy households, which, according to many on the left, have benefited disproportionately and unfairly from the site's starting to jump on me. Y'all know I don't like that. It bounces around. Disproportionately and unfairly from the 2017 tax reform law passed by Republicans and signed by former President Trump. The latest data, however, proves that the claim is pure mythology. Income data published by the IRS clearly show that on average, all income brackets benefited substantially from the Republicans' tax reform law, with the biggest beneficiaries being working and middle income filers, not the top 1%, as so many Democrats have argued. And I'll tell you why. Let's say you do a percentage. Again, I like percents. Let's say you do a percentage cut across the board. Everybody's going to get back an additional 2% of whatever they paid in. For me, for some of you guys watching, that may not be a ton, right? But for the wealthy, if they were to get 2% back, that could be an exorbitant amount. It could be awesome, right? But the percentage that makes a difference in whether we're buying, name brand or Kroger brand or whatever, or we're able to take a vacation or not, benefits us significantly more because it impacts our lives, because so many people are living paycheck to paycheck, if they can even get to that point. Like, I'm doing a little bit better than paycheck to paycheck. Not by much, but a little bit better than paycheck to paycheck. So if I were to get back and 2% of my taxes, if my wife was getting back 2% of hers, we would definitely benefit from that and enjoy that significantly more than, a rich person going like, what's this extra money going to do? Make my bed more firm when I lay on it? Lay on a bed of money kind of thing. Anyways, that's why. The statistics are there. Yes, the wealthy got back more money, but the middle class, the working class got more benefit out of it. That is the way it goes. I know he doesn't want to go top down. He wants to go middle out, up, down, whatever. But I'm telling you that there was nothing wrong with that tax cut. And they just want to bitch and moan as much as they can about it. And they're lying to you. They are lying to you. Next clip.
I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half.
Okay, so the first thing I want to point out to you is that he used the phrase, fight like hell. You're not supposed to do that. That's a phrase used by Trump. right, in his speech on January 6th, that many on the left say was a call to action. NBC News, judge says Trump may have been urging supporters to do something more than protest on January 6th. U.S. District Judge John Bates said Trump's use of the phrase "fight like hell" could have signaled to supporters that entering the Capitol would be unlawful. There was a, I'm sorry, I was trying to think. I can't remember who did it. I think it was Crowder over on Louder with Crowder that did a montage of like all these liberals saying "fight like hell," either in tweets or in live interviews or rallies or whatever. But they went after Trump hard and heavy because he used it. Again, here's another example. Biden used the same phrase, and had something happen after that, would he be held to the same accountability that Trump was? Trump never said to go over there and do what they did on January 6th. He said peacefully and patriotically have your voices heard. Some did that. Most did that. But you had the individual facets that got out of line. Well, if somebody would have got out of line the other night for the State of the Union, does that mean that now Biden is an insurrectionist because he said fight like hell? Come on now. The double standard is what really just gets under my skin. And again, Steven Crowder, that's one thing he's big on, and I agree. It's not that the justice system and the government isn't necessarily fair, is that it's not balanced and even. It's hypocritical. They'll do something for one political party and not the other. They'll hold certain people accountable for this and not for this. I'm going to go back and say, black folks have been saying that for a long time, that the justice system has been unfair for them. If they're caught with marijuana or anything else, their punishments are significantly stricter and harsher than if it was a white person that gets busted. Ideally, now that's not the case, but I'd say it probably still is in a lot of places because we have an unfair justice system. And I would love to join anybody and fight like hell to try to rectify that and make it more balanced and more fair across the board. This hypocritical crap just can't keep flying. Okay. Moving on a little bit here. I love when he mentions the 400,000, right? No one making less than 400,000 will have to pay more taxes. And that's an oddly specific number, as if the president shall receive in full for his services during the term of which he shall have been elected compensation in the aggregate amount of 400,000 a year to be paid monthly, yada, yada, yada. So when he says that no one making less than $400,000 a year is going to get an increase in taxes, why $400,000 a year? It's almost like he's just putting it right there in front of you. If you knew what the president was making, you would know that 400,000 seemed a little specific there, a little specific. But the Biden family is known for not wanting to pay their taxes like they're supposed to. Moving on. Childhood poverty was another thing that he mentioned. Got cut in half under Biden. Look, I haven't found anything that suggests that is an accurate number, but I also haven't found anything that says it isn't. It does look like it hit an all-time low in 2021, but I can't say that was half of what it was prior. And I don't know what prior means, if it was Trump or just any time or since he came into office. So I'll kind of put a little asterisk or a little question mark next to that one. I can't say one way or the other definitively. Again, I did do my research. I did look into it. Didn't find anything. So I'm not going to knock him for lying on that one or exaggerating. But I will say that I don't have a definitive answer one way or another. So you can do your research on that one and check it out. Next clip.
It's cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this.
Boy, he's always talking about some chips, isn't he? I can't tell if he's talking about computer chips, potato chips, or chocolate chips. So it's fun hearing him do that. But one of the leading reasons that these companies are doing the whole shrinkflation thing is they're trying to compensate for the rise of inflation, right? So their manufacturing cost and labor and everything has gone up. So they're trying to offer the stuff at the similar price that they've done before. And the only way to do that is either to take a hit, which, to be fair, they could probably take the hit. A lot of these are multi-billion-dollar businesses, companies that have been doing this forever and can absolutely take a hit. But who wants to do that when you've got a payment for your, mansion coming up here? You got to have that money, right? So instead of taking the hit, they pass it on to us by either raising the cost or lowering the amount of goods that we're purchasing. And I don't know if many of them are lying as much as they are just misleading us. And I'm not trying to take the shot on it. I hate it. I wish they would just take the L on this, or just, part of me says increase the price. But then again, at the same time, there's enough there to satisfy people that don't have the money. And me being one of those people, I'm all about it. So my weak spot is Oreos. And of course, I'm trying to diet and eat right. But if I were to open a pack of Oreos and about a third of it was missing, I'd be pretty upset. I would. But at the same time, I'd be probably more upset if I was spending probably 30 or 40% more for what I've always gotten. So it's hit or miss there. But I understand some of what they're doing, but a lot of it is because they're trying to compensate for the inflation that they've done. Customers can buy something else if they have a problem with it. Again, this is the beautiful part of capitalism. You make the decision. Instead of you eating the cost, you are either going to reduce the amount that we're getting or increase the price. Well, if we don't like what you're doing, there may be another company out there, probably is, that offers the same or similar items that you do, and we can take our businesses there. That's been very successful with other businesses that have, to use the phrase, gone woke or pushed some kind of crazy ideology out there. I mean, look at Bud Light, look at Target and others, so keep that in mind.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now.
And this is another retread from a previous episode that we've done before, talking about the bills that they were trying to get passed through and the misleading that they do when they try to pass them, right? So the bill he and the Dems are trying to push through, that, again, we covered in a previous show, only designates $20.2 billion out of $118.3 billion to border security, to our border, that is. This is the breakdown right here from PBS, what's in that bill. So here's Ukraine, here's Israel, here's all kinds of other stuff, right? And then here's for our border, the U.S. border, $20.2 billion for improvements to the U.S. border security out of $118.3 billion. That is 17% of the overall deal went to us. But he's going to make it sound like, him and all the Democrats are going to make it sound like the Republicans didn't want to secure our border. But that's not the case here, right? The best border security from that bill belongs to Ukraine. So little of that bill does anything for our border. And to be fair, we wouldn't have to fix so many issues with the border if he wouldn't have told them to surge it in the first place and then got rid of the Trump era restrictions. Next one.
It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far.
You playing politics is what caused the need for this bill. in the first place? I mean, think about it, right? So he's so oblivious to how much of this is his and his administration's fault just because some rhinos signed on. He wants to call it a bipartisan bill, bipartisan projects, bipartisan this, bipartisan that. That doesn't mean the rest of the Republican Party is on board with it. Doesn't mean the rest of the Republican voters out there support any of this that's going on. And when Biden says, look at the facts, I can guarantee you, he has no idea what the facts are. And there's a really good chance that most, if not all of his administration are ignorant to the facts of pretty much anything.
I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels the political win, he viewed it as will be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
All right. So first things first, he couldn't keep his train of thought going. So a part of me is like, Marjorie Taylor Greene just needed to be quiet and let him just continue to flub about how he's a winner, but not really, or something, or whatever he was doing. I don't know. But at the same time, good on her for speaking up, right? She piped up. She said, Laken Riley, say her name, say her name. Now, earlier in the night, she gave him a pen that had Laken Riley's name on there and was saying, you need to say her name, because he hasn't said her name yet, right? So you saw he picked it up and tried to address it. Of course, he pronounced it wrong. But, as a Georgian myself, I do appreciate what she did there. The dude's clearly never heard, read, or said Laken's name before, because it is a different name. It's not Lincoln, it's Laken. You would know that if you had heard it before, if you had said it before, if you had conversations about this person. Guaranteed he never has. He knew enough to get through it and call the perp an illegal, which I thought was great. We'll come back to that in a second. Even when reading it, he couldn't say her name right. I've seen folks on the left criticizing that the point that we're making a big deal about the name. Yeah, absolutely. Y'all criticized Trump when he didn't say somebody's name. This is the same kind of thing. This is, again, the hypocrisy. The media and the people on the left just want to, oh, he just mispronounced the name. This is a guy with a lifelong stutter and all this and that. No, it's not. Dude doesn't know who he's talking about. And it doesn't meet the narrative, so it's getting swept under the rug. Just like a lot of the mass shooters lately have been of I believe the trans community, if not at least some portion of the LGBTQ community, but we don't keep hearing about them because, again, it goes against the narrative. It goes against their messaging, right? Continuing on with this, names are important. They humanize terrible situations like the one Laken went through. Good on MTG for pushing him to speak on this and forcing him to go off script. Because he went off script, the older 80s Democrat mindset must have kicked in, before they were so left liberal and all, welcoming to anyone and everyone and genders and pronouns and legality of citizenship and everything didn't matter anymore. Back then he called the murderer an illegal, which everyone used to call illegal immigrants that crossed our border illegally. Funny, makes sense, right? But now the left has moved so far to the left that they have to use softer language to not offend their largest growing voter base. Check this out.
Notice the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country. The reason our economy is growing. We have to control the border and more orderly flow, but I don't share his view at all.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
And that's just ridiculous. Moving on to the next clip, though.
But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
Yeah, he just laid out the entire objective, though, didn't he? Illegals can pay to cross the border and know they'll get health care, a check, place to live, and, just about anything else. Probably the right to vote and run for office and everything, all thanks to this administration. Again, you're the problem, right? You're the problem, dude. Talking about Biden. He's the problem. I don't know if y'all have seen this clip. I'm going to pull it up real quick. Again, I've been getting on Twitter lately more and more, kind of learning it. And this was viral, blowing up. Love it. Check it out.
So if you know that these motherfuckers is paying the immigrants $8,000 to get across the border, then why the hold on, bring your ass back in this damn camera. Bring your ass back in this camera, Mr. Biden. Get your ass back in this camera. Girl, sit your ass down with your goofy looking ass wig. I'm sick of these damn people. This man just got up here and said that they paying these people $8,000 just to get in our country, and if they can get in, they can do whatever the they do. So if y'all know this, get your ass back on the camera. Why the is y'all letting them in here and then giving them $8,000, huh, Mr. Biden? Sick of these motherfuckers. This man is stupid.
And then the other thing he said is, if my competitor or Trump or whatever he said, I don't think he ever said Trump's name, is watching. Yeah, well, he was watching and he was having a lot of fun with just check this out.
We're going to buy American. We're going to buy America. Folks, so trade rules. Buy America has been the law since 1933. Also caps and won't even go into effect until 2025. And by the way, that law was written and the benefit expires in 2025. New electric grids that are able to weather major storms and not prevent those forest fires.
Trump gonna Trump, baby, and nobody does it better than him. Next clip.
I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it.
That I couldn't really make out anything that came out of that rambling. Other than secure the border, I couldn't really make out much, right? But I thought the border was secure. Isn't that what they've been telling us since day one? Remember all this?
The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border.
The border is, in fact, secure.
A record 221,000 migrants crossed into the U.S. last month.
Our border is secure. We believe certainly that the border is secure.
1,300 migrants a day.
We have taken unprecedented action over the past year and a half to secure our border and rebuild a safer and orderly process system.
This year is on pace to be the deadliest year for migrants crossing into this region of Texas in recent memory.
The border is secure. The border is secure, and the border is not open.
Crossings are still at an all-time high, with Border Patrol reporting more than 1.8 million apprehensions from October 2021 through July.
The border remains closed. It is not open. We are turning away the majority of adults, but
the border is secure. The border is closed.
So we are offering solutions. That's what the Biden-Harris administration has been doing since day one.
This is worse now than it was before.
A record number of migrants this year, and the total could surpass 2 million by the end of September.
We're certainly doing a lot more to secure the border.
We have a secure border.
And we have a process in place to manage migrants at the border.
A record surge of migrants in New York City.
Over 2 million illegal immigrants crossing the southern border, an all-time record.
The border is secure.
We agree that the border is secure.
Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back.
He mentions banning books as in that's some kind of gotcha. You got to remember that what he's probably referencing is mostly Florida and the books that were being banned there. The overwhelming majority of the books were pornography. They had images or descriptions depicting sexual acts between adults and children, or same-sex relationships, or even not same-sex potentially. That's the thing that they keep overlooking. No one cares if it was gay or trans or whatever as far as the images and the descriptiveness of everything goes. It's the fact that that stuff, that filth, was out there for kids that are underage and it's inappropriate for them. Yeah, those books were banned. Were other books banned that are questionable? Like maybe why did this one get banned? Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually some really good reasons for why certain books get banned. And again, I'm going to go to Florida because that's where a lot of the questions are coming from. And I would suggest that if you are interested in that, go look it up, because there were some books that were banned that were historical books, but the way they presented history were not accurate or went in a whole nother modern audience kind of direction that derailed from the depth and the complexity and the legitimacy of the actual story that it was supposed to be telling. Another thing he was talking about was pass the Equality Act. That's been something for a while now, if I'm not mistaken. But the Equality Act, I had to go to Fox. I usually try to go to left-leaning news sources, so I'm a little bit more fair, or as best I can be. But all of them are, towing water for the administration, right? So Equality Act holds level of misogyny, according to irreversible damage author. It's very much like critical race theory, Abigail Schreier tells Tucker Carlson tonight, which, of course, Tucker's not there anymore. So this has been a while, 2021. Blah, 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 blah. Sure. I have a daughter, and I want to raise her in an America that's safe and fair for women and girls. Democrats just wanted to talk about the fact that the bill includes rights for employment and housing for transgender and gay Americans. And that's wonderful. And I would have supported the bill if that's all it was. But actually, the Democrats sneaked in this really radical gender ideology, which states that if you're a biological man and decide at any point, for any reason, that you would like to declare that you're a woman, you now would have a legal entitlement to enter all of women's protective spaces completely, or compete in women's sports, and you'd be eligible for all women's scholarships. We're already seeing rapes in women's, rapes. I can't help it. We got to say it. We're already seeing those in women's prisons where opportunistic men self-identify as women. Remember, all they have to do is announce they're women. They don't need to change anything, so they get transferred into women's prison. And some of these men are sex offenders and they can harm women, and they're already doing so. And we can expect opportunistic men to continue on this path. This has nothing to do with transgender Americans and everything to do with self-identification. And that goes on. That's actually a pretty good read article right there, because it talks about the complexities of dealing with this as far as it's not just, you get to identify as once, but you are getting something and it is taking away from somebody else. And that's the argument that the left keeps saying, like, why do you care? What does it do to hurt you? I've got a little girl and she plays sports. And we talked about this in an episode about Dove. Go check it out. But she plays sports. I want her to get all her scholarships and opportunities and feel safe with the team she's on. Now, if she's running against somebody who could be a, fullback, linebacker, whatever, I'm a little worried here. Some dude's running at her. I might be on that field before she even hits the ground. You with me? And I'll be damned if they're going to go into a locker room with her. No, sir. Not my baby girl. But that's the issues that we're having, right? That's what we're talking about. Somebody's security or opportunities are being taken away. And with the Equality Act, it forces that. And I didn't pull it up because I didn't want to bring the whole religion thing into it, but there's provisions in there that typically take care of religious organizations. There is not in the Equality Act. So religious organizations that oppose all this could be legally forced to accept it and to deal with it. And that would be, in my humble yet accurate opinion, a terrible thing, because I believe in separation of church and state on both sides. Unlike some of my Christian colleagues and folks out there, I don't want the Christian faith pushed on Americans and school and through laws and stuff like that any more than just, any more than I want the government pushing back onto the church. Let's have the separation of it. I will say this, though. The laws that we have that are the law of the land do come from God. The rights that we have. Of course, we implement it more on top of all that because not everyone is godly. Not everyone believes the same faith. And when we talk about like prayer in school, I'm okay with no prayer in school as far as being taught or led, because whose prayer? If we're going to be fair, is it going to be the Jewish prayer? It's going to be the Muslim prayer. It's going to be a Christian prayer. So I'm one that does believe on both sides separation of church and state. I think one is more dangerous than the other, but I digress. Go on to the next clip. Check this out.
We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs, like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations.
So I guess global warming turned into climate change, which is now climate crisis, even though most of the same people that are claiming that own beachfront property, so they're not too worried about the ocean levels rising anytime soon, I would imagine. And then what is he talking about doing? I mean, he's saying that he's getting us ready for this, and it's a lot. We're not ready. We're never going to be ready because, one, I don't think it's ever going to be an issue that any of us or our great grandchildren are ever going to have to deal with, first of all. Secondly, they're trying to put, and this is my big problem, because I'm okay with alternative means of fuel or transportation or whatever. I'm okay with all that. In fact, I welcome it because competition is great. It's definitely great for us because it gives us more options and it makes things more competitive. So, it brings prices down a lot of times. So look, Tesla, the other EVs, good for you guys. Do your thing. But if we were forced to go all EV right now, our electric grid cannot withstand it. And even if it could, where's most all that electricity come from? How is that created? Coal and fossil fuels. So, yeah, we're not ready yet. Oh, I would love to see us one day find some better alternatives that are better for the environment. I'm okay with that. I'm not a tree-hugging hippie, but I'm okay with doing anything that's better for our health or the health of the world. But you're not going to sacrifice our day-to-day well-being for something that could impact 20 generations from now, if then.
To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through no...
All right, so two things with this one, right? One, are Americans actually safer now under Biden than they were under Trump? So a look at this graph, and this is the most current one I could find. Had a release date of October of this past year. But as you can see here, again, I like to compare the Trump numbers to the Biden numbers. So if we're looking right here at Trump, he was elected in 2016. So in 2017, it dropped. 18, it dropped. 19, it dropped. What happened in 2020? It went up. It's almost like there was something else going on. Summer of love, pandemic, and everything else. So again, kind of skews numbers there, in my opinion. But then, of course, Biden takes over. It comes down a little bit. Comes down a little more. Now, I will say this, as of 2022, this is through year end. So through year end of 2022, I don't know what it was for 2023. I don't know where we're at right now for 2024, but through year end of 2022, it was at 369.8 versus Trump's last year without the COOF, right, of 363.9. So it's still not better than Trump. Again, we got to compare. We got to compare what's fair if we're going to do this, right? And we're not. They're going to compare to the peak of COVID, and everything is compared to that. So it looks great. Numbers across the board are going to look great compared to that. And that's not genuine. That's not fair. That's not what we as voters and as taxpayers remember. I know that you wished that's what we remember, is that, oh, it was the worst thing in the world and then Biden pulled us out. No, Trump had us going in a fantastic direction. And then COVID happened and threw everything off. And then Biden happened and threw everything off too. Yeah. So here's another one. You heard that guy hollering. Who was he? Well, he was a Gold Star father, and he was actually arrested. So for those of you that don't know, there were protesters that were damaging stuff, blocking roads, even blocking Biden from getting to the State of the Union address that night. Nothing happened to those guys. But this guy, who was not the only heckler, was not the only one speaking up, was arrested. And who is he? Again, he is a Gold Star father. He lost his son in the Kabul airport bombing back in 2021 from, of course, Biden's failed attempt to pull out of Afghanistan. Just absolutely heartbreaking and sad that this man was in there. I don't know if honoring his son is the right thing, but representing his son, fellow Marines, the failed exit out of Afghanistan, just the abysmal drop of care that this administration has for its servicemen and women and for crime and being safer. And that's what he was doing. He's like, you're a liar. We're not safer now. I lost my son because of you. And if that doesn't pull at your heartstrings, I don't know what to tell you. And the fact that he was arrested, no, not a good look, Biden.
It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust, as I've been doing, by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land.
It was funny when he was talking about the American Rescue Plan. He said, every American voted against his American Rescue Plan. I think he meant every Republican, and he said every American, but, you know, Biden's going Biden. Right. But these people are monsters. Look, in blue cities and blue states, you can legally shoplift up to a certain dollar amount. They don't care about the crime, right? No one can stop you if you go in and shoplift however much it is allowed. You're good to go. Not only that, but if you get arrested for something, they have no cash bail. You're back out on the streets in no time. Remember when he said crime rates were lower, and remember the chart I just pulled up? Keep this in mind. If you change what is considered a crime, right, then you change the dynamics from which all that's reported and data is classified, right? So if shoplifting is a crime, then you've got all the data of people that shoplift, right? But then you change it from one year to the other. Now, shoplifting is not necessarily a crime unless it's over a certain dollar amount. Well, now all this gap in between is no longer getting charged. It's not getting reported. It's not going into the equation, even though it's a crime or was considered a crime. Should be considered a crime. You've now fudged your numbers. And maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe that's how they're fudging their numbers so much. I don't know. It doesn't how many times you get arrested. They just love letting criminals go back out on the street. It's not the Republicans that need to get on board. It's the Democrats. Next clip.
Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed for simply using or have it on their record. Take on crimes of domestic violence.
Hey, I don't disagree with that one at all. You know, anyone who's in jail for possession I say let it out. I mean, we've got, I don't know what you call them. Are they distilleries or whatever? Places that sell weed all over the place, and we're legalizing. No, let them out of jail. I've been a big advocate for that. I mean, legalize it, decriminalize it, all that stuff. It doesn't make any sense now where we're at in present day. So you're saying that I can go open a shop and sell marijuana all day, every day, but then this guy over here, 12 years ago, had a little bit on him, and now he's still in jail? Come on, man. Come on, man, to quote the great President Joe Biden. But as great as that sounds, this was just a talking point for applause, or a talking point for, hey, America, get behind me because I want to do it. It barely scratches the surface of how many people are in jail for what crimes and all this and that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, I do support it, but it's just, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's enough to get people riled up and excited.
My predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. Oh. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There's his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it.
So Trump said he was proud he didn't do anything for guns. I'm okay with that. I mean, yeah. Moving on. Trump said, just get over it. Just get over it. Is that really what he said? Now, I've read a couple of articles on this. Now, I already knew that's not what he said, or at least not in the context, right? But I didn't pick it up till later. Somebody else pointed out that Biden, when quoting, and he said, that's a quote, he added the word just on the front, so just get over it. So first of all, he botched the quote. Doing that implies more of the context that he's trying to reference than what the actual context was. And I'm not alone in this. I saw it again in the little Twitter world. Other people were like, he could probably sue Joe Biden for misquoting him. I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd love to see it. I think it'd be great. Here's an article right here. This is from the Des Moines Register. Did Biden quote Trump correctly in the State of the Union? Reference it to Iowa school shooting. Let's see. Seeking to draw a contrast, President Joe Biden made over a dozen allusions to his predecessor. He kept saying predecessor, didn't he? While he's a predator. Anyways, in his State of the Union address on Thursday night, including one with an Iowa reference and a partial quote from the man he was referring to, former President Donald Trump. But did Biden get Trump's quote right? Mostly. After speaking about his effort to combat domestic violence, Biden turned to gun violence. With us tonight as jazzmen, yada, yada, yada. Let's go down here to the quote. We heard their, this is from Trump. We heard their this is from Biden still. We heard their message, and so should everyone in this chamber do something, he said. I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House that Vice President Harris is leading. Well, she's leading everything, like the border and everything, and nothing's getting done. So that's cool. Put her in charge of more. Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. After another school shooting in Iowa, he said, we should just get over it. Joe Biden's reference adds a word Donald Trump didn't say. This is where I saw it. Okay. Biden's partial quote, Trump added the word just before get over it. Trump, while holding a rally in Sioux Center January 5th, as he campaigned ahead of the Iowa caucuses, spoke of the shooting at Perry High School. The day before, when a student opened fire in the cafeteria and killed another student, fatally wounded the principal and wounded 5 other people, taking his own life. Trump said he sent his support and deepest sympathies to the families and victims touched by the terrible school shooting. To the entire community, we love you, we pray for you, and we ask God to heal and comfort really the whole state, he said. We're really with you as much as anybody can be. It's a very terrible thing that happened. It's just terrible, he said. That's just horrible. It's so surprising to see it here. But we have to get over it. We have to move forward, he said. To all the relatives and all the people who are devastated right now to the point they can't breathe, they can't live, we are with you all the way. Doesn't that sound a lot different than saying, just get over it? He was saying we have to get over it. We have to move on. We have to rebuild. We can mourn them, but we have to move on. We can't continue to suffer. We are making ourselves suffer. I think it's fine the way he said it. You know, maybe a different choice of words would have been better perceived, you know, from the media and everything. But I would imagine that those that were there and those that were touched by his comments didn't care what he said. The fact that he was there and showing compassion was really a whole lot that meant to them. So, yeah. Next clip.
I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners.
Okay, per usual, he wants to ban assault weapons, even though no one has ever been able to just define what an assault weapon is. They will try to throw out examples of assault weapons, like an AR-15, which is not an assault weapon. I'll tell you a little insider secret for those of us that are Second Amendment folks. There's no such thing as an assault weapon. There you go. He wants to get rid of high-capacity magazines. He probably doesn't even know what that is either. The folks at the ATF clearly don't know anything about guns either. Here's a fun little video I saw the other day.
Chris is here. He's one of our leading experts. So that's the frame.
There's no clear way to demonstrate that those who are responsible for enforcing gun control don't understand firearms better than this clip right here. Let me demonstrate how easy it is to take a slide off a handgun. See? Quick and painless. That ATF agent really earned the title of expert, didn't he?
Look, we already have background checks. This whole universal background check is another layer that they're trying to add in there, and it sounds good, but it's more tracking and all kinds of stuff that goes into it. I won't go into that with this video, but yeah, we already have background checks when you buy a gun. I bought one the other day. I took my little girl in there with me, and I showed her the process. It's like you can't just go in and buy a gun. They have to do a background check, make sure you're not crazy or suicidal or violent or have a felony or, you know, anything like that. I mean, it's legit and it's already there, but they act like it's not because, again, they don't know what they're talking about. Let's look at this. Where did he teach the Second Amendment for 12 years? Because he said he taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. And this is from techarp.com. Joe Biden taught constitutional law for 17 years. Joe Biden taught constitutional law as an adjunct law professor at the Widener University, Delaware Law School for about 17 years. He taught constitutional law for one semester per year by himself for 12 years and another 5 years with a co-teacher. This was confirmed by Widener University, Delaware Law School Dean Rodney Smolla. Senator Biden began teaching at Delaware Law School in the fall of 1991. He taught a course in constitutional law on Saturdays, one semester each year. He taught the course by himself until 2003, when he was joined by a co-teacher, Professor Robert Heyman of the Delaware Law faculty. So I will say this. He might have told the truth for once. I know he said one time he was a full professor, and we debunked that 2 or 3 weeks ago, I want to say. And this isn't saying that he was a professor. He was saying that he taught it. So if he did, good for him. He doesn't understand the Constitution, so that's a little weird, but hey, you know, maybe somebody got something out of it. You know, because I remember he used to claim when he was running a long time ago that he campaigned appearances in New Hampshire last spring that he finished in the top half of his law school class, although records indicate he finished near the bottom. And on videotape, a clearly angered Biden told the questioner, "I think I probably have a higher IQ than you. First year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay and went back to law school, and in fact ended in the top half of my class," which is not true. So he's a liar. He's not that great in law and constitutional law, I would imagine. So probably not the best teacher, but hey, at least there's some truth there. So, you know, good job, Joe.
For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America is falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices.
So I thought calling COVID the China virus was racist. But Biden can talk about China and the economy in a negative way, and everybody's cool with it. Remember this?
Let's say China. 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 China.
Again, no hypocrisy from the media, I'm sure. Next clip.
Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that. I want competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills. But there's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online.
All right, so I'm not sure about that last flubbage that came out of his mouth. Not really sure what that was all about. But to say that Trump didn't do anything against China, are you serious? Trump didn't do anything against China. Well, first of all, those of us that were aware of things that were going on in the world when Trump was in office know that he did things against China. In fact, here's a couple of examples of many that are out there, right? So this is from PBS, but from written Associated Press. Trump approves bill to punish China over ethnic crackdown. President Donald Trump signed legislation Wednesday that seeks to punish China for its crackdown on Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities. You know, the Uyghurs that Disney filmed in China for Mulan and thanked the internment camps for the Uyghurs. Yeah, those Uyghurs. The bill includes sanctions on Chinese officials involved in the mass surveillance and detention of the Uyghurs and other ethnic groups in the western Xinjiang region. The legislation represents the most significant action to date by any country to punish China for a crackdown in which more than 1 million people have been detained in camps under harsh conditions. So there's some sanctions and stuff. What else? Trump bans U.S. investments in companies linked to Chinese military. The Trump administration on Thursday unveiled an executive order prohibiting U.S. investments in Chinese companies that Washington says are owned or controlled by the Chinese military, ramping up pressure on Beijing after the U.S. election. The order, which was first reported by Reuters, could impact some of China's biggest companies, including China Telecom Corp, China Mobile, and surveillance equipment maker Hikvision. Yeah, so, I mean, there's just a couple of examples right there, but yeah, Trump was warning us, as we saw earlier, about get your business out of China. He was warning us against China. He was going after China. He was trying to get us less dependent on those guys and punish them through sanctions or increased tax, whatever, as much as he could. To say he did nothing is one of the biggest lies you could have told. And the fact that people cheered for you knows that either one, they're too stupid to know that you're lying, or they absolutely know that you're lying and they're okay with it.
And keep our truly sacred obligation to train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support.
Hey, flashback to when Biden kept checking his watch when they were unloading the bodies of soldiers that were died in Afghanistan, right? Remember this? Biden slammed for appearing to look at his watch during ceremony for dead Marines. Biden was receiving the bodies of 13 U.S. service members killed in Kabul. Excuse me, Kabul, not Afghanistan. Maybe they're cousins. I don't know. Conservatives and veterans attacked President Biden for appearing to look at his watch, look at his watch during a ceremony for the 13 U.S. servicemen killed in the ISIS-K suicide bombing near Kabul airport in Afghanistan. I was right, Afghanistan. Sorry, bad thing to cheer for. I apologize. And it goes on here. There he is. It's true. Joe Biden checked his watch during the dignified, let me get this pulled up better for y'all. The dignified transfer of the service members killing in Afghanistan at the airport. You can see him jerk his left hand to pull the watch out from under his sleeve, then look down and at it. Let's see what this looks like.
You talked about Sergeant Nicole G., who was one of the 2 female Marines who were killed among the 13. She was the one who posted that Instagram post holding the baby saying, "I love my..."
Okay. And one of the followers that was there said he did this multiple times and it angered him every time he did it. And it pissed me off too. My son died overseas in a senseless war and that you are the commander in chief over, and you can't even not look at your watch while they're unloading his dead body. My dead son, which I don't have one. But my little girl could serve. She's got to go get her out. She could go over there and serve. You don't think I'd be hot if I looked over and saw my president doing that? If her, I don't even want to say it, but you get what I'm saying. How disrespectful for him. And even that other interaction earlier with the Gold Star dad, kicked him out and they arrested him. So much for free speech and protest, I guess. Next clip.
Let me close with this. Yay! I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values that have defined America: honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor.
Yeah, I think right there it's clear it's getting close to his bedtime, and the drugs they got him hopped up on are starting to wear off a little bit. And did you see Lindsey Graham over there? I'm sure he was giddy all night and probably just giggled his little self on to sleep because the president mentioned his name. Next clip.
Now other people my age see it differently. The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's not me.
Resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's exactly who you are. That's exactly what you do. Again, never in our lifetime, never in my lifetime, have I ever seen political prisoners like we do today. We got political prisoners that were opposition to Joe Biden. People are in jail for January 6th that either didn't go in the building, they weren't even on the grounds, or some that weren't even there at all. And they're in jail. Journalists that reported on it are being arrested. We saw that, I think it was just last week. The political opponent of Joe Biden has been charged and indicted enough times to make anyone's head spin over stuff that is clearly fabricated to sideline him. Now, what was it? Stephen Colbert says, no one doubts that he did these things. Yes, they do. Just the one that gets me more than any is the valuation of Mar-a-Lago. The value of Mar-a-Lago being inflated or whatnot or exaggerated. First of all, it was a victimless crime because everybody got their money back on that one. And then what they're saying that Mar-a-Lago is worth is ridiculous. Ridiculous. It is such a lie, such a reach, and they are doing anything they can to go after their political opponents. This is an evil man. This is an evil man. He's done a fine job of rebuilding the swamp that Trump started to empty. And that's going to do it for what I'm covering from this guy. He's not a good guy. He's really not. He may have been at one time. The history that I'm familiar with suggests that he never really was. And that probably rubbed off on his kids. That's all I'm saying. Now, per usual, the Republicans had their rebuttal to the State of the Union. This year it came from Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. This is an intro, a couple seconds into what she did. I won't play the whole thing here.
Here now, Senator Katie Britt.
Good evening, America. My name is Katie Britt, and I have the honor of serving the people of the great state of Alabama in the United States Senate. However, that's not the job that matters most. I am a proud wife and mom of 2 school-aged kids. My daughter Bennett and my son Ridgway are why I ran for the Senate. I'm worried about their future and the future of children in every corner of our nation. And that's why I invited you into our home tonight. Like so many families across America, my husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's State of the Union address from our living room. And what we saw was the performance of a permanent politician.
And much like her criticism, this too kind of came across as a performance. It didn't seem that genuine to me. Politicians, by and large, seem to be void of reality and realness. And I think that's what attracted so many people to Trump, is they saw realness, whether they liked it or not, or agreed with the things he said or not. You knew what he was thinking. You knew what he wanted to say because he said it. You knew what he was thinking because he said it. And, he didn't wait to go on the news or have a press meet. He went straight to Twitter and was tweeting stuff out all the time. This was probably the most transparent presidency you could possibly ask for, right? And of course now they're going after him because they don't want him back in there. But look, I'll leave a link in the show notes to that full rebuttal video that they did. Wasn't the biggest fan of it. And look, she's young, she's attractive. I know they wanted to, put somebody out there to have a good face for the Republican Party. And she, checks boxes there. But at the same time, it did not seem genuine. Now, one that did seem genuine, and I want to thank a buddy of mine, Dustin, for sending this to me because I never would have seen it, is from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I like him as a patriot. I think he is a patriot. I think he loves this country. I think he wants to do right for this country. I don't necessarily agree with all of his political standings and positions, and definitely in an election like this where Trump is running, I'm not voting for RFK Jr. Not going to do it. I will be voting for Trump, absolutely. But could I be swayed at some other date and time? Possibly. The guy is very passionate. He's very knowledgeable. And again, it's clear he loves this country. Trump loves this country. If you look at a lot of these Democrats and Biden, and I'm sorry if you are a Democrat, I don't mean to offend you, but by and large, these are the people that do not like this country. The American flag triggers them. They hate it. Here's a brief clip from the video that RFK Jr. put out that I really enjoyed. Check it out.
I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I'm running as an independent candidate for President of the United States. I grew up in an America that seemed to have achieved its promise as an exemplary nation. Modern democracy had spread from one nation, ours, in 1776 to 6 by 1865 and to 190 by the 1960s. We had become the city on the hill. We were a moral authority around the globe.
So I felt his was a lot more heartfelt. I mean, yes, it was a performance, right? I mean, with the graphics and the music and everything. Yeah, absolutely. But anytime I've heard that man talk, it genuinely comes from the heart. So I felt like his, not rebuttal, but his video was more heartfelt and even pulled at your heartstrings more than hers did, in my opinion. I know other people probably disagree with me, and that's fine. And then that's what the comment section is for. You can leave your comments down there, disagree with me all you want, or you can move on about your business and never talk to me or watch one of my videos again. That's fine. It's a free world. It's what we get to do, and I love it. Guys, that is going to do it for this very, very special episode. Again, it's the State of the Union. It's not something we're going to be doing all the time. What did you think? Was it too long? Not long enough? Did I not go into enough depth on some things? Did I skip over some things? Did I just drag my feet? Am I doing that now? Look, leave your comments below on what you think, what you felt, how you felt about the State of the Union, how you actually feel about the current State of the Union, not the address, but the current State of the Union. How do you feel we are as the union of the 50 states right now? What are you thinking? How are we doing? What can be done different? What can be done better? And I won't tell you to put who you're voting for, but I think I'll probably be able to tell based off of what you say. But look, if you stuck around with me this much, thank you so much. Hit the like button if you liked it. If you want to see more content like this, again, I do full videos on Friday. I cut them up into segments and release those throughout the week called the Morning Nuggets, and those go out every day throughout the week. Subscribe or follow depending on which platform you're on. I'm on all of like these guys right here, these guys right here. So wherever you're watching it, subscribe, follow, like, share, all that good stuff. Again, I'm enjoying the comments in the comment section. We can have some back and forth. Guys, regular show will be back Friday, and then yeah, that's gonna do it. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.
Now, I was a single father for a while, but only on the weekends, though. Only on the weekends. Can't be around that little cock blocker every day. Hell no. Get out of here, man.